came back in and was only out for just a minute. It wasn't I didn't plan on getting out at the time. I was back and forth on it, but I decided I was going to stay in. And so right when I got back, I was getting promoted about. I worked out at. I went right back out there and worked at A-Line for a while, and then I got to push that platoon and got promoted, and so did that for a bit, and then I got orders to 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, and jumped in at Charlie's cheering over here, my camera guy, because that's where I met Charlie. Was in 1-2. He's a mortarman, and so I get to 1-2, and I was a sergeant at the time, and I was a assault section leader, and I met the gunner, and then a little while after I met him, another gunner came in and replaced him. You know, we knew we were going to this place, this Iraq. We didn't know where we were going in Iraq. We knew we were doing some stuff really soon. I'm sorry, I missed the 9/11 part. I'll be back up there for that. You know, you specifically asked about 9/11.
No, you're good.
I was at A-Line. I went to the 7-Day store to grab a hammerhead for me and a hammerhead for Bob James, like one of my best friends. And it's like a coffee and some chocolate-covered cream fill so we could be fatties and drink our coffee and eat our chocolate-covered cream fill, Krispy Kreme donuts.
Like any instructor.
Yep. So I drove out there, and I heard on the radio on Lex and Terry in the morning. It's a local radio show out there up and down the East Coast a lot. Really funny. I used to love Lex and Terry. And they were talking about this thing that happened, like an airplane flew into the Twin Towers. And so I sat there listening on the range right there for the next 10 minutes, you know, while his coffee's getting cold and my donuts are cooling down. And I hear that another one hits the tower, you know, and I'm still sitting there, and I'm like, dude, there's something going down right now. So I'm going to go tell the boys, you know. So I grab the stuff, and I go over there, and James and a couple other guys, and and remember Staff Sergeant Bodette. Some people out there may recognize Staff Sergeant Bodette because he's in a lot of History Channel shows.
Huh.
He's a Marine that just wants to fight and kill bad guys all the time, dude. He is the real deal. Like, there's people who fake it, there's people who act like it, there's people who did a little something by accident, who were in the right place at the right time. Bodette is the guy that's going to find the right place at the right time to go kill bad guys. He is that
awesome.
guy. He's like without fear of loss, if he is fearful, he suppresses it. But he is a guy that you want with you. He's going to get you in some fights, right? But he's going to be a good guy to have with you to fight with, you know. And he's in a lot of History Channel stuff because he was always trying to find fights, rolling out with SF guys, Army SF guys, and doing stuff, taking his guys out. He's in a lot of shootouts and a lot of those old episodes of stuff back on the History Channel and some stuff. So he's on there. But Bodette was there, and I believe Bodette's responsible for indirectly and directly for killing a lot of bad guys and capturing a lot of bad guys. And I'm the one who told him that 9/11 happened. So
wow.
I got out and I told him, I was like, dude, there's like these airplanes, like 2 of them just flew into the Twin Towers in New York. And people were talking about it's terrorism and this and that. And, you know, we don't know what's going on. So I had never even heard of the name at the time, Osama bin Laden.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did, it didn't register enough for it to matter to me. I didn't hear a lot of the terms and a lot of the names. I didn't know what the Taliban was. I didn't know what I knew a little bit about Islamist extremists just from some books like The Bear Went Over the Mountain and like the Russians battle in Afghanistan and, you know, like some things that because Russia was our enemy, right? Like that's who our enemy was, right? Like that's who we thought about. That's who we trained for. It was just the end of the Cold War and everything. And we still had all this old Cold War ideology and training and tactics and everything else. And then when I told Bodette that he rips his campaign cover off, that's usually something treated very carefully, you know, and respectful. And he bends it, grabs it, throws it, flips a picnic table. He's mad, he's yelling. It's that G.D. bin Laden mother effer. Like he's already on the list for him. Dude, he without anybody saying that, he already knew all of it and everything else. He was putting together. He knew we were fighting. He's like, we're going to Afghanistan. We're going to kill everyone. Like he was so mad. I have never seen anybody go from zero to complete. I want to kill everybody on this planet, like Bodette did. And he did it. He didn't talk about it. Like I bet that man deployed every chance he got and got in every fight he could get.
Wow.
But he had a big scar on his face, and then I forget how there was all these stories about how Bodette got the scar on his face. Like it was Desert Storm, man. He was in a knife fight. Like there's all kind of stories about because Bodette, even at the time as a drill instructor, people were like afraid of Bodette, you know.
Yeah.
And rightly so. But. Yeah, it's and I saw him over the years. He retired a few years ago, but I talked to him a couple times on Facebook, you know, briefly. He was doing a little something in the gun world at a gun store for a while. I'm not sure what he's doing now, but that's when 9/11. I was at Paris Island, and then we started seeing this huge influx of recruits of all kinds, all ages, because everybody wanted to go
patriotism. Yeah.
And so normally in in the wintertime, it's our slowest month. We have platoons of like 40 to 50 people coming through. By the time they hit us in the winter, we had crazy big platoons for the next year, which is a lot of work. A lot of longer days every day, longer days on the range, more relays for qualification, everything else. So that we very high tempo after 9/11, and then I got orders to 1-2 right before Iraq kicked off, and we had just locked on with the MU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit, to go to the Med or wherever we should have been Med, but we were going to Iraq, and we did all that, and I got in with the gunner, and he sent me to a couple little schools before we went out there, like little just local schools, division schools and stuff, and we were doing some workup stuff, and I would do my regular job even though I didn't really know much what I was doing. Because I was never a small guy. I knew the small and I knew demo, but I hadn't done it in a minute, and so I relied heavily on a lot of the guys that were there that knew a lot. I was a section leader. I needed to know everything, so I picked it back up pretty quick. It wasn't that difficult, but my bread and butter was rifles, shooting rifles. I wanted these guys to be able to fight, and then the stuff I learned from my first year, the room clearing, the crazy intense drills that we would do, the qualifications, the shooting at a high level that the Marine Corps at the time had no idea even existed. They thought if they went to the range to qualify, that they were good shooters. That I shot expert. Like that is, you can be the worst shooter ever and qualify expert on the rifle range if you can do 7 things right. But the real fighting with a gun requires you to be able to think while doing 60 things right and in consecutive order, and there's so much. It's much more complex. And the shooting part is the easy part. It's everything else that surrounds it that's difficult and complicated. So it's that I tried to bring that in, and just so happens there was something happening in the Marine Corps. They were developing what's called the Enhanced Marksmanship Program, EMP. That I went to that school to be a trainer for that, to be able to teach it. And then I went to Basic Urban Skills that was replacing mount training and a bunch of that stuff. So I spent a lot of time with the gunner, so he would send me to go, hey, so-and-so is going to go do a range or doing short-range rifle stuff. Can you go out there and run them through some drills and teach them these classes and do that from this other company? So I would go from, like, my company to go teach this other company. My lieutenant hated me. Hated it. He hated that he wasn't going out there and teaching these companies, and, like, some sergeant was getting asked by this company commander to come run some drills for this other platoon. Like, he despised it. We butted heads. One of the only people in the Marine Corps I ever really butted heads with. But the gunner was trusting me, and I found this is where it came full circle for me. This is when I really began taking it seriously. I learned how to teach at Paris Island, and I learned how to analyze bad information and good information. But when I was at 1-2 and I was on one of the K ranges out there at Lejeune, and I don't even know what company it was or anything else, and there was like some Lance Corporal asking the sergeant me a question, and I would just start answering the question. Tactics, manipulation of the weapon, setting up a sling, gear setup, whatever, and I noticed that there was a bunch of Lance corporals and sergeants standing around me taking notes. Just like I was doing.
You became the wise old man, and
right,
yeah,
and just like I was doing for those guys before, and they would ask me questions and they would take notes, and when I realized that, and I remember I was eating when I'm MRE out there, whenever this really hit me, and I'm like, I've got to make sure I'm right. Like, what a responsibility. Like,
yeah, especially at that time, they're going.
Yeah, these guys are believing everything I tell them. What if I'm wrong about? And looking back, I was wrong about some things. There were some things I don't agree with that I was teaching back then. Now, and because I believe I have better information now, and I'm the most right I've ever been. But I've been wrong about so many things that I'm probably wrong about something today. But I was so. That's when it hit me that I've got a huge responsibility here. That's when that was a big change for me out there on the K ranges, when I realized these people are believing everything I tell them to do. Tell them they think that I'm just giving them the gospel right now, that I'm right about everything. They're not even questioning it. I've got to make sure that I'm right. This is a huge responsibility. So that's when things really changed a lot for me, and I started really diving in, making sure I was right, not just regurgitating what somebody else that I thought was right was saying. And I started trying to figure out ways to test things on my zero budget, and reading as much as I could, whether it's magazines or or whatever, you know, picking up combat handgun and reading what Masad Ayoub's talking about here. Let's see what Jeff Cooper's talking about, you know. Let's see what Pat Rogers is talking about. You know, just like learning from a lot of these guys, you know, from the best I can. You know, we still didn't really have too much internet going on. There's a little bit. You know,
Yeah, just starting.
We're in 2000, so it's not like it is now, but there's plenty of stuff out there. It just looks horrible, and it's not as easy to find, you know. But it's out there. Forums were starting to happen and some things like that, news groups and that kind of stuff.